Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter podcast for the 20th of March. So today, I want to kind of give you a heads up. Okay, we're going to be doing, I don't know how many sessions this will be, definitely two, perhaps more, on attachment theory. Now, this has the risk of possibly being boring, all right, in the theory part. So this week and possibly next week's podcast will be passing on to you the foundation pieces to understand where we developed vulnerabilities, and anybody here has them. Everybody has in this world has vulnerabilities for something, all right? But especially the attachment in our preparedness for the future challenges that we have in life, including including clutter. When you think of what your relationship is to your things, and that there is a gradient, all right, that in itself tells you that there are some aspects about your relationship that have to do with attachment. And so this time I'm going to ask people to take notes, because as we progress through this podcast, definitely the next, maybe there'll be a little bit on a third one to get the material covered. Whatever we don't use for me to pass on attachment information, we can use the rest of that podcast, that specific podcast, to open the mics and process. But I want you to be thinking about your relationship to your things, especially the things that are particularly important to hold on to, and the other extreme, those things that are just confounding you. They're there, you don't really want them, but they just seem to be more complicated than you can figure out a way to make the decision to let them go. All right. So the notes I want you to take are anything that has a little bit of a click moment for you and seems to fit for you. And my hope and I trust is that that will pay off with likely insights that may serve you well in future to understand why your particular belongings take on a meaning and importance and attachment if you keep them. All right. Whether you keep them actively because you are connected to them, or you keep them passively because you're disconnected to them, we have them because we're struggling. We still have them with us because we're still struggling with them. All right. And I also believe that this material will help you to deal with the buildup and the clutter. So we're going to go through what might be a little bit of boring material, but it's really important that you understand the foundation pieces. All right. So the theory of attachment. Attachment theory describes the dynamics of long-term relationships between humans. I also believe, to a lesser extent, that there's a carryover, not just from humans, our relationship to other humans, but to our things. All right, particularly the things, as I said, that we are particularly invested in, and those that we just can't seem to let go of for passive reasons. The most important principle, all right, we go back to infancy, is that an infant needs to develop a relationship with at least one primary caregiver. They need to do that for social and emotional development to occur normally. This happened for each and every one of us. All right. When you can't remember the specifics of and the details of your young life, I want you to go with the feelings. I want you to be guided by the feelings. All right. because our memory only takes us back so far. Attachment theory explains how much the principal, usually parent, relationship with the child influenced your development. Attachment theory involves psychological, all right, and evolutionary theory as well, because what we learned and what we gravitated toward, we have passed on. And what was true for our parents, they can't really parent 100% differently than what was done to and for them. So this is a generational thing, an evolutionary thing as well. We are not looking to blame parents. We are looking to take control of our lives by understanding our reactions to things. So we have to go back to the soundest theory, and that happened immediately after World War II. After World War II, there were innumerable homeless and orphan children, and that presented many, many difficulties. A psychiatrist and psychoanalyst called John Bowlby, write that one down in case you want to look this up, Bowlby, all right? He was asked by the United Nations to write a pamphlet, little did the United Nations know, on the issue, all right, which he entitled Maternal Deprivation. It was assumed at that time that the attachment figure had to be the mother, all right, because all things start with our mother, right? Yes and no, as it turns out, but he titled it Maternal Deprivation. And the subsequent attachment theory that we're going to talk about, that we're going to draw on to understand our own reactions and experiences, and to put them in a better footing so that we can manage them, because we can see them coming, we can feel them coming, and we understand where they're coming from. They're not a mystery. All right. If you understand something, even if it's unpleasant, even if it's difficult, you have more power to change the influence of it, if that influence isn't something you want to live with. So attachment theory grew out of his work, and it was around the issues that arose when infants become attached to individuals. All right. Now, it turns out that it isn't any old individual. It is more likely, it is more powerful, more sound when the individual that the infant is responding to or reacting to is sensitive and responsive. Sensitive does not necessarily mean warm and fuzzy. It means exactly what it says. Sensitive. They are aware, they take some responsibility to engage, and they take some responsibility to respond to the actual need that the child, the infant, pre-verbal. This is pre-verbal, all right? The child doesn't even know they need anything. They're like little. And then that plays out in social interactions with the child, all right? It also dictates, well, it doesn't dictate, but it seriously influences who remains in the infant's eyes. The child, in the infant, it's not as discreet. So the consistent caregiver, the preferred caregiver, all right, is the one who is present, is sensitive to something, the child needs something, and who does the best to respond to that, not necessarily perfectly, not necessarily any better than anybody else, but is more consistent in being responsive, all right? So I want you to start thinking now, are there any family stories about parents being ill, about the consistency of somebody being available, all right, to respond to your pre-verbal needs. You're wet. You're hungry. You don't know what wet and hungry is. You just know you're uncomfortable. All right. You don't know the words to it. Are there any family stories about there being some kind of interference at that point? All right. Now, this is who remain consistent for caregiver. The caregiver remains consistent, but it has to be not like a one-off. It's for a period of time, some months during the period from, this is the especially believed to be the especially critical period. All right. 6 months to 2 years of age. Now, there isn't necessarily a cutoff point, 5 months and 29 days or 2 years and 1 week. It peters, all right? Okay, but that is the believed to be the particularly critical period, okay? This period is known as the sensitive responsiveness period. Sensitiveness just means that you are aware of your senses. It doesn't mean you have a preference necessarily. It doesn't mean the person is a warm fuzzy. All right. It doesn't mean that they got it right all the time. It means that you were sensitive, especially sensitive in that period to your vulnerability, your inability to meet your own needs of discomfort. All right. And someone relatively consistently responded. All right. Okay. When the infant begins to crawl and walk, all right, things change a little bit. Then they begin to use attachment figures. Usually they prefer familiar people, but they'll take anything in a pinch, all right? But we preferred familiar people as our secure base, our first choice. I know if I get this person to respond, that I am more likely to feel better. All right. This is nonverbal. We're not planning this. This isn't a strategy. This is a response. This is a basic human need response. All right. Now, once we've got that secure base pretty much lined up and identified, not always available, all right, then from there, we develop a more secure base to explore. We go out a little, we take a few chances, we wonder, we're curious. We try a few things as a child. And then we return to it because we know it's there. We know pretty much we can count on it. It becomes the foundation piece for our secure base of attachment and our sense of safety. The caregiver's response, all right, leads to what they do for us, all right, leads to the development of patterns of attachment. And there are different patterns we'll learn a little later on, and they're important. The patterns are important, right? And these patterns in turn lead to how our mind perceives it, how we work it through our functioning, our internal, they call them internal working models. I did warn you this might be a little boring, okay? But it's important. All right. So when we form these patterns of attachment and we've got this pretty secure preferred caregiver that we're looking for, all right, we will go to first at 6 months to 2 years. Before that, the baby responds to whoever is responsive, all right, responds to it. Okay, so we'll start forming these working models and we will use those to guide ourselves. And even as a child, 6 months to 2 years, what and how we perceive things. all right, starting to form there. Our emotions, our response to it, the sense, not the cognitive sense, but the visceral sense, our emotions. And as we start to formulate thoughts and we're aware of making sense of things, and we've got the words to describe them, it also starts, this is important, all right, to start to form our expectations. Now we're anticipating, starting to anticipate things about future relationships, what we could count on in future. How many people here are afraid of making a decision in case you need it later? Huh? And you can't let it go because you know what? You can't. The world isn't perfect. Your ability to perceive what is going to be a need and your ability to overcome it if you happen to let go of this thing. Is there any correlation there? I believe so. I believe so. All right. So the other thing that happens though between the 6 months to 2 years is there is a pretty definite separation anxiety. All right. That we as children may have cried, or may, even if we didn't cry when our preferred caretaker left and wasn't available, we felt that. All right, we felt something inside, separation anxiety, because remember, we have it pretty much nailed that so long as that person or those few people are there, we're good, we're safe, nothing can happen to us. All right. We're not even formulating words. We know this at an emotional and a visceral level. And we express grief when they're not. Why? Because we don't, nothing terrible is probably going to happen to us, but we don't feel safe. As long as we can put our eye on them and we can have them respond to us when we feel enough need, all right, we're good. Was there any interruption? It does not necessarily, remember, have to be your mother. It doesn't even have to be your father. It could be a grandparent. It could be an aunt. It could be a nanny. It could be anybody who is responsive and who is relatively consistent. All right, so we're starting to look to see if any of that was disrupted. All right. So this separation anxiety, these expressions of grief, crying, anxiety, yelling, um, trying to follow the caretaker, find the caretaker, all right, follow the loss of an attachment figure, and they're pretty immediate, all right? And as unpleasant as it is to experience, and certainly as a parent and a caregiver to be the person that you've got to go, to work, you've got to do something, and your child is responding in this separation anxiety attachment manner, it's considered to be normal. This is normal, all right? As distressing as it can be for all parties, it's pretty much normal. And it's also a healthy sign that we are developing what we call an adaptive response. So from that experience, powerlessness, just react, try to get the caregiver to come back or stay with us, we're starting to develop a little bit of a strategy. What would work? All right, because we want the end product. We want all we want. We're very egocentric at this point. All right. Egocentric just means we're about our own needs. It's every man for himself when you're a child. All right. And so we're starting to develop our adaptive responses as an attached infant. And up to 2 years are still considered. We call them toddlers now, but for research purposes, it's more still a longer period of infancy. Now, these behaviors that we choose, all right, or that we've been taught, may have evolved because they increase the probability primally in, as a child, surviving. There were times when life wasn't so organized, wasn't so certain, and survival for an infant depended on you get what you need. You be the winner of getting whoever can take care of you and meet your needs to respond. And the one that couldn't get that, probably early enough in history, perished, was the one that didn't get to pass on their gene pool. Okay. Now, a second researcher, she's a developmental psychologist, Mary Ainsworth, in the 60s and 70s. So you can see this whole work has been going on for some time. Reinforce the basic concepts. All right. So she confirmed Bowlby's work and introduced the concept of the secure base. That is what we are all aiming for ourselves, but we are also all aiming for that for our children, okay, or anybody that we provide care for. And she developed a theory of a number of attachment patterns in infants, and this is important to start from. The first is secure attachment. That means I need something, and reliably, not every single time, all right, but reliably, my needs were met by a consistent group or a consistent person. All right, okay. The second was avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment was that we didn't get our needs met. All right, and we were left feeling insecure and vulnerable. That happens to some children. It didn't just happen once. That was the normal, predictable pattern for us. And then there is the anxious attachment. And if you want to make somebody really ill, all right, and of course we wouldn't, the fastest way to do it is to make what they need and want and are looking for that is vital to them inconsistent. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. All right. And the child, we as adults, then later on, we never know. Are we going to get our needs met? That does the most damage. All right. Okay. She also discovered a fourth pattern that Bowlby didn't come up with. And this is called disorganized attachment. This is not a good thing. All right. In the 1980s, the attachment theory was applied to attachment in adults as well. That's why I'm bringing it to you. This isn't all about babies. It may have started with babies, but we continue to live these attachment behaviors. All right. When we understand them and we can see them, we can feel them, we can identify them, we've got a whole lot more power over the choices we can make. We're not so reactive because it's a mystery. That's why I am asking you folks to have patience with this. Okay. So other interactions may also include components of attachment behavior. These include, as we grow, peer relationships at all ages. Our attachment patterns affect and influence. They don't dictate, but they do influence how we respond and what we expect from other people. All right, okay. And this is at all ages. We don't stop this. This is our working hypothesis every time we have a relationship, okay? And this can be romantic, it can be sexual attraction, it can be responses to your care needs, their care needs of adults, infants, sick, elderly, anybody who is vulnerable and presumably needs support. And we can be on the receiving end of that as well. It's believed that those who don't experience secure attachment, okay, maybe I don't get it immediately, but I know that either it is going to be provided to me, what I need the most, what is the most important for me, all right? And each person here today has a different list of needs. There are some common needs, but there are other needs that are specific to you. Do you know what those are? Are you spending enough time figuring that out? Those who don't experience secure attachment, and sometimes people who have adequate to pretty good self-esteem, all right, doesn't mean that they think they're, God's gift to whoever. It just means that if they know they need it and it's not being provided, they don't know how they're going to do it, but they do know that they are capable of figuring it out well enough that it is secure. Meeting that need is pretty secure. Not perfectly, but adequately. Do you see how that would lessen your anxiety significantly? So we're all looking to develop as secure an attachment pattern with ourselves, others, and our things and our environment. Okay, so those who don't experience secure attachment may develop a sensitivity to rejection later in relationships. They expect to be rejected. They don't expect. They hope, they dream, they do a lot of emotional work in relationships, but they don't really expect that they deserve to have their needs met. And sometimes this has been a frequent enough choice that we've made, or we've engaged in a way that we pretty much predetermined that that was going to be the outcome. That is there anybody here today who would be the first to walk away from a relationship rather than try to see if you can make it work successfully enough? May develop a sensitivity to rejection in later relationships, expecting it to happen to them, but also doing it before they really get their feet into it, the relationship. Attachment theory has become the dominant approach to understanding early social development. And we are the product, if we are not aware of that for ourselves and its effects, we are the product of that. Let's be less of a product. All right. Okay. And also, it has become the dominant approach in the formation of children's close relationships. Now, within attachment theory, attachment only means an affectional bond or tie. There is affection doesn't necessarily mean love, but attraction, okay? Affectional means your affect, your feelings. That's all it means. Your feelings are connected. Bond or tie between individuals and whoever you choose or identify as your attachment figure or figures. Who are they right now? Take a second. And as in the interval before I start again, write down the names of the people who you believe are your attachment figures. Who are the people you have an affection, an affect, an emotional, a sensory relationship with, exchange with? It's two ways. And you feel are pretty secure. Not perfectly, but they're pretty secure. They would be available. And you would probably try your best to be available for them as well. Who are they? Just going to pause for a second because this is important. Now, after that attachment figure list, beside the names, put secure, S for secure, okay? I for insecure, and what would we put for P for perhaps. You got that list? Secure means you could call them at midnight tonight and they would pick up and they would do their level best to help you. All right. Insecure means, well, they're friends, but you know what? You really can't count on them. You enjoy their company, but you really can't count on them. And you know what? They might not be able to count on you either. It would depend, right? Okay. And P is perhaps. Well, on a good day, maybe, perhaps. There's a fair shot at it anyway, but you can't count on it per se, on them. Okay. All right. So these bonds may be reciprocal between two adults, which is why I had you do that list. But they may be between adults, but between a child, you as a child, and your primary caregiver, these bonds are based on your needs as a child. When you need something, the caregiver responds. May not be reciprocal. So the caregiver stubs their toe, does something, you may not respond. Do you see what I'm saying? For a child, these attachment relationships are driven by the child's needs. When the child expresses a need, the reliable, consistent caregiver, God willing, responds. All right. Most of the time, reliably. Nothing's perfect. Okay. And they respond around issues of, and were any of these an issue for you as a child? Safety, security, different from safety. I always think of safety as kind of like the structure you're in and the circumstances. Security is you are basically safe, you are basically protected. And actual active protection. Nobody took chances with you. You were taught as a child, don't leave the yard. Don't cross the street. If your ball goes out in the street, you don't go, you come and get mom or dad. And other things. Okay, now, because safety, security, and protection are absolutely essential, even the infant knows this. The infant crying wet in their bed knows this. They don't have a word for it, but they know it. It's primal. All right. It goes deep. And later on in childhood as well. So, attachment theory proposes that children attach to caregivers instinctively. And the sole purpose is survival. And ultimately that they will survive and they will go on to be the next replication gene pool. Do you see how survival is at a primal level as well? You survive to be the gene pool that creates the next generation. So at a biological sense, survival is the aim. It has a species level of importance. Okay. Now, the psychological aim is security between the child and the adult. The child's tie to the caregiver adult, the secure adult, is called the attachment. And the caregiver's reciprocal equivalent response to the child is referred to as the caregiving bond. How bonded did you feel going back to your first memory as a child? And who did you feel, if you were fortunate enough to have bonded relationships, who was the person or people that you felt bonded to? Write their names down. Infants form attachments to any, they have preferred, all right, after about three to 6 months, they have a preferred caregiver. But before that, infants form attachments to any consistent caregiver who is sensitive and responsive and engages in that caregiving social interaction with them, cooing, saying, "What a lovely baby," or, rocking. The quality of the social engagement, the quality of it, listen to this now, the quality of that social interaction, the cooing, the smiling, the touch, all right, is the quality of that social engagement between the infant, you as an infant, and your primary caretaker is more influential than the amount of time spent together. You as an infant, I as an infant, were able to decipher who influenced us to feel safe and secure. It's not the amount of time, it's the quality of the relationship. Now, I personally, this is my bias, I personally believe that there's a cutoff point, all right? You can't use that principle to an extreme. I think it's very difficult to develop quality if you don't have sufficient time. Okay, so the one person who shows up, and is a star is not, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that healthy balance. Okay. Although everybody thought, hence the maternal deprivation title, everybody thought that biologically the mother would have to be, or should usually be, the principal attachment figure. But the fact is that role can be taken by anyone who consistently behaves in a mothering or caregiving way, in a nurturing way, in a responsive way. Responsive just means they reliably make themselves available. They may be the worst person at changing diapers, all right? They may half drown the baby in the bath. That's not true. But not be the bad. Maybe the shampoo got in the baby's eyes. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about reliability, and we're talking about consistency and mothering, caregiving, okay? And it's over a period of time. It's not a one-off, okay? So in attachment theory, this means that there are a set of behaviors that involve engaging in social interactions with an infant, you as an infant, and responding readily to the signals that the child is giving us that they need something of the caregiver and they want the caregiver to approach them. All right. Fathers or any other individuals, it turns out, are equally likely to become principal attachment figures. It does not have to be your mother. It doesn't have to be a female. All right. So long as they provide most of the child care and they relate in a social way. A baby, an infant can tell when they're being handled rather than when they're being cuddled. All right. Some infants' attachment behavior is specifically designed to elicit that come to me. It's called proximity seeking. Proximity means you over here now. All right. Some infants' attachment behavior is proximity seeking. And it is almost always directed at that one attachment figure. So there could be people there, but they see their attachment figure go by and they call out, they respond, they react. All right. Okay. And that happens almost as soon as they start to show the fact that they're able to discriminate between the faces and the touch of different caregivers. It happens early. Right now, think about you as an adult. What kind of proximity seeking behaviors do we engage in as adults? If you wanted somebody to respond, what would you do? You couldn't whistle as a baby, unfortunately. Somebody just made a whistling thing. Yeah, okay. Okay. So by the time somebody's coming up to their second year, most are doing this, okay? And let's not fool ourselves. There is a hierarchy, okay? So that principal, primary, preferred attachment figure is up there at the top, right? But that's not to say they wouldn't take their second choice, so long as what? The person responds. Is that the way you function in your adult relationships as well? And is any part of not having your needs met, you not meeting your own needs, or others not meeting your primary needs, the reason that your attachment object becomes things? You're settling for something else. Security. If I keep it, I can't have made a mistake. If I keep it, I might need it because I wouldn't be safe or secure if I let it go and then it turned out. Silly me, I judge myself. Or what would I do? Or wouldn't I feel silly? Wouldn't I be stupid? Wouldn't how ridiculous is that I let it go and I had it? I'd feel badly about myself. Are you using other things as attachment figures? And what do you expect them reasonably to give you back? Because remember, it has to be reciprocal. Are your needs being met by someone else who has stepped into the role of primary attachment figure? You would put their name down on that list that I asked you to make. But first and foremost, you're not an infant now. Do you know what you need? Have you spent enough time and effort figuring out, if I really need something, why do I need so much? Why can I not meet my need for the serenity, the environment to be the way I want it to be? Because if you don't spend the time and energy listening to your mind and your internal reactions to what you need to identify, all right, how in heaven's name are you going to find them? How are you going to recognize them when they do come into your environment or they become possible? How will you know where to look for them? How will you know how to make them happen for yourself? Do you see why I'm doing this? This attachment theory business? Okay. The set goal of the attachment behavioral system is to maintain a bond with an accessible and available attachment figure. Of the things that you keep now, all right, ask yourself, you don't have to do anything about it right now, but I want you to start to conceive of it. And that is, are you keeping anything because you haven't figured out what to do about it, but you don't actually, you don't need it. It's not part of your day-to-day life, and it's not likely to be part of as far into the future. The set goal, have you made it into an attachment figure, an attachment item? The set goal of the attachment behavioral system, that means what you act on or don't act on, that is also an act, is to maintain a bond with an accessible and available attachment figure. What of the things you have that you know you need at some level to make a decision about have you turned into attachment figures because you are assigning the value and meaning that they are important to your safety and security? And that can be things like newspapers, all right? That could be things like news. I know I kept it for a reason because there was an article. Has that article actually turned out to be important enough for your day-to-day life? And I'm not mocking you. If I hear this once, I hear it a million times. I kept it for a reason. That magazine, I kept it for a reason. Okay, but how important is that reason to you right now? And how important has that reason been? How have you survived without it? How really would you not be safe or secure if you just start from the beginning? Let it go. And when the need comes up again, you can go online, you can get more up-to-date information. Newspapers. I know, but I like to read them. All right. So if you read them, have you ever done a time log in your day or your week? Where is the time to read and how much, in what depth do you need to read? And how is information that is aging, how is that working for you? Because remember, if it truly deserves to be an attachment figure, it has meaning today for you with your need today and not your need for safety, because there is no newspaper that's going to make you safe. There is no magazine that's going to make you safe. And any information in there is available somewhere else. Live today. Now, I know because I hear that at the thought of letting go of these assigned attachment items, all right, an alarm goes off. An alarm is activated at the thought of let X, Y, and Z go. Now, I want you to write down on that paper that you have in front of you, okay, I'm not saying you have to do it. This is not a call to action right now. That's a tiny bit premature, but this is a call to consideration. All right, to consider. If something happened to that item or that type of item, all right, what would be the worst thing that would happen to you? And are those just feelings? Would your life, would your safety, would your security, would your anything enduring actually be threatened? Would it? What is the worst thing that would happen? And if it's a feeling, know this. We need to know what our feelings are. We need to be aware of them, but feelings are not facts. Feelings are the end result of the importance and the meaning that we have applied to things. We gave those things their meaning. We assigned it and we can unassign it if we can't keep up with the demand that it makes on us. And if we choose to spend our time and our energy on other things that give us more today, we can unassign the importance as well, because we were the person who made that thing important. We gave it its importance. It's a choice. It's not a necessity. There are very, very few things in our environment or in our life that are a necessity. We give it that, okay? So the alarm is the term used for activation of the attachment behavioral system that ends up causing fear or that sense of being vulnerable. How many people here today feel alarm, some level of alarm, when you think of, you know what, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to get rid of it, or I'm going to give it away. Like I want my life back. I don't want to spend tomorrow figuring out how important that thing was. If that thing was important, I'd have used it by now. I'd have needed it by now. Don't let the past dictate your future. What are your needs today? And don't let insecurity, what is the worst that really would happen if you did make a mistake? How would that actually change your life? And if it would, find somebody you can share it with. Whatever the thing is, share it so that if you needed it, you can get it back. And if they need it, they can use it. And if all else fails and you do let it go, and that happens to me, I laugh all the time about it. I'll let something go. I'll think, you know what, I haven't needed that thing and I don't have the room for it. And I let it go 2 weeks later. I think, where is that thing? It's almost like a joke of life. But you know what happens? I learned that I can get another. I don't even necessarily have to buy it. I can borrow it from somebody. I can, all right? And the really good things that I've let go of, I've given them to people who I still have a relationship with who wanted them, all right? Which means that pretty much anytime I want, I can borrow it back. A little bit of strategizing there. You're never without, and you are never as vulnerable as you feel. And if you feel vulnerable about it, you have all of us here today, all right, to support you through that and problem solve. Anxiety is the anticipation of fear, a fear of being cut off from the things that we have made into attachment figures. We assigned the importance to this thing or this person as an attachment figure, and we have the ability to unassign it. If the figure becomes unavailable or unresponsive, separation distress occurs. it is not going to cost us our life. Sometimes that distress is about self-judgment. Sometimes it's about reinforcing for ourselves that, you know what? I thought it was so important, and yeah, I wish I did have it, but my life really hasn't changed that much. I can use something else. I can get something else. I can manage just fine. Good enough. Now, in infants, physical separation can cause anxiety and anger, crying, distress, followed by, and this is the sequence. How many of you, when you have not had the success you're looking at for reassigning importance to those attachment items, how many people have been through the sequence of anxiety, anger, frustration, sometimes with others, with yourself, just with life, and have gone on to sadness and despair? This thing is bigger than I am. I have news for you. There is nothing that is bigger than you are. There is nothing that is bigger than you are. There are always answers. And if you don't have the answer, who knows more about it? Who can help you find not their answer, but your own answer? Because here's the secret. You would not be asking yourself the question if at some level, all right, whatever level that is, you already know that inside you, you have the answer. We never ask ourselves the questions that at some level we don't realize we have the answer inside us. We just haven't figured it out yet. Who can help you drill down on that and help you find the answers? Your particular unique answers to make sure that the things that you're keeping in your environment that are going to limit your life and limit access to other areas and other things in your life that are going to make you feel badly about yourself, all right, give you anxiety, give you burnout. Where are the answers for those? Because they're available and they belong to you. Everybody has the answers to the questions they ask themselves. But sometimes we need the help drilling down to find our answer. Don't take somebody else's answer, maybe a suggestion, and you might try that, and that might lead you to your own unique answer. But get the help you need to find your own answer. So we're going to pick up next week what happens to us by age 3 and 4, all right? Because that becomes kind of a different path. So I'm going to stop that now, and then I'm going to look at the chat box here and see what we've got. All right. Yes, I will tell you about your dining room table clutter. Not a problem. I won't do it today, but I will. All right. Glad to see you back. Thank you. Thank you. Carrie, I'm glad that you enjoyed the podcast. And yes, this is about setting ourselves free. Where are we here now? Where does shyness play into social settings? The next sequence, this is Carrie to everyone, the next sequence of age-related attachment behavior has to do with shyness in social situations, because shyness in social situations basically boils down to self-confidence. Okay. And if anybody deserved to be confident, Carrie, you do. So certainly let's peel the lid off that one. And all right. What was the fourth type of attachment? It was disorganized. It was disorganized. The woman who came up with this was Mary Ainsworth. I think it was Ainsworth. And Bowlby, I think it's Bolby, Boulby. Ainsworth, yeah. Ains. Look at you, Kim. Mary Ainsworth was the woman. Ainsworth. Can you start out fine as baby? Yes, you absolutely can. This question is, can you start out fine as babies? We all start out fine as babies. We're all optimists. But the attachment breaks later in life by abuse, being bullied at school. Generally, the bullying at school can be a profound trauma. It's that your attachment figure did not step in to help you remedy it, to protect you from the influence of the world is full of crazy people, all right? Or by parents changing their approach as the child ages. So one of the things about raising children, and we'll end on this, ask yourself this, I mean, if you have children, or you know people, there are certain ages that you just do better, all right? And I would love, this is an exaggeration, I would love to have, all right, 20 children who are all age 3. I would like to have no children who are age 2. And I would like to do away with children as a species by the time they're 4. That's a joke, because they are twice as bad and twice as smart at 4. At 3, they're angel. And at 10, 10's another really great age. They're sort of like adventurers, and they're going off and they're finding their capabilities. Yeah. And babies, I can take babies or leave them, frankly. But by the time they're starting to ask questions or they're starting to need care and comfort, yeah, give me 15. Okay. So parents do well and not well with children, raising children at certain ages. It's the continuity of the lack of parenting, or the continuity of the lack of responding to you as an individual who deserves understanding, all right, and respect, all right? Even if the parent doesn't have the answer, even if they handle it badly, if they at least handle it badly, treating you with respect, but they don't quite get what the problem is, that is less damaging, all right? And the other thing too is that sometimes at certain ages, I know, Christine, this may resonate a bit. At certain ages too, children are expected to conform. All right. And I'm not talking about good manners. I'm not talking about, not chewing with your mouth full, or talking with your mouth full. I'm talking about big conform. And that confirmation as such, that demand to conform, sometimes is in serious opposition to who that child is as an individual. All right. And so that can get in the way as well. And then if that becomes oppressive, that demand to conform, that can undo a lot. All right. So I will see you next week for age 3 to 4. All right. And further on to adults. Take care, everybody. Make it a great week.